Saturday at 3, so why don't we get started? Today's town hall. Thank you for coming. I'm Keith, Vice President of Research, and I really appreciate you're all attending today. It's great to see you all in the interest of WSU research and celebrating both where we've been and where we're going. So today is the second of our town halls and the WSU Grand Challenges. The purpose of this is basically just to describe to the community what's going on, next steps, seek your input, and of course seek your involvement, because this won't work without you. I'm going to make a few introductory comments, go through the agenda, and I'm going to turn it over to our distinguished series of panelists here, one from each of the Grand Challenges, as well as a student, Tony, who's very actively involved, their scholar. So let me just make a few introductory comments, and let me just start by just telling you where we, how we got to where we are today. And I think this actually, for me, starts out with President Floyd. Of course, we all celebrated all his major contributions to WSU, a little over a week ago, about a week ago, with the memorial service. President Floyd, brought me here. It was the excitement of research here that brought me here. But he also, of course, gave us all a major gift with the strategic plan. It really laid out a vision of enhancing the university's research activity, basically elevating our game to the next level. That document, which, as you all know, it came out about maybe 15 months ago or so, early last year, had research as one of the four strategic objectives, actually research, innovation, and creativity. And, Elson, being Elson, gave the incoming VPR a job even before I got here. He told me to put together a research plan to realize that you can basically grow on the strengths the university has and our various colleges and programs, take that, build on it, and take us to the next level. So it was a great challenge. And so I got here in July of last year and, very quickly started up a strategic planning effort, or the 120-day study. Before I had a chance to learn anything and make any mistakes, I just started this the first or second week I got here. And it was really a great experience. So that event ran from formally 120 days was basically a time frame. Those of you that know Congress know that they request you do everything in terms of X-day studies, 30, 60, 90. If it's a 30, that's all you do for 30 days. I worked in Washington for a while. I did a number of those. I'm a physicist by background, for those of you who don't know. So we set this out as a 120-day effort, and it formally kicked off actually in this room with a kickoff meeting with the provost who co-chaired this effort with me. And it ran through the end of January. And during that time frame, we had great involvement in a number of subgroups from the faculty and staff. Over 200 folks were involved either on subcommittees or through input. We got a draft report by the end of January, and then since January of this year, and since then we've been refining with the deans and talking to outside stakeholders and that sort of thing. And the net result of all that is sort of two things. Number one is a strategic research agenda for the university, which we formulated in terms of these 5 grand challenge problems, which we're here to talk about today. Okay, the second major thing that came out of that study is a series of recommendations to improve the research enterprise in a whole variety of areas: sponsored, contract administration, faculty mentoring, all kinds of different areas. And we're busily engaged with our colleagues in the various colleges and other campuses to do that. But today we're going to focus on basically talking about those grand challenge problems. And what's a grand challenge problem? A grand challenge problem is something that's inspirational, it's multidisciplinary, it's inclusive, and it's meant to really communicate the excitement of the research we do at WSU, to the broader community. And so today, again, this is the second of our panels. We're going to briefly summarize what each of those challenges are from our panel here. And urge you to get involved and answer your questions on these. So let me just actually get the clicker. Where did it go? Oh, there it is. So let me just go through the agenda that we'll have today. Again, I'm going to do the overview, and then basically each of the WSU Grand Challenges will give a few-minute presentation on basically the nature and scope of the challenge that's being looked at. So we have the 5 that are listed: the Sustaining Health Challenge, Sustainable Resources or Food, Energy, and Water, Advancing Economic Opportunity, Smart Systems, and then National Security. And then Tony, our undergraduate student, will give his perspective, and John Garden will also talk for a few minutes near the end of the meeting. And so then we'll have a Q&A, and we're scheduled to go till 4:30. So that's our agenda. Right now, where we stand on these is that there are faculty leadership teams for each one. Here are the names. There's also a point of contact in the Office of Research, Ida Duda and Dan Norquist on these, so many of you know them. You can also answer your question. These are the folks that are basically helped write, along with a team of many others, the initial documents in the 120-day study, and are now taking this to the next level of specificity, which we won't get into today, and during the talks perhaps we will, but we're in the middle of taking these to a bit more level of detail. And so again, just here are the challenges themselves, and in a moment I'll turn to our colleagues to describe them in a bit more detail. Let me just close with a few more comments. First of all, the 120-day study report itself, I mentioned that the draft was done in January. That was done in the hurry-up mode in 120 days. We've not quite taken our time, but we've put it through a pretty elaborate review process from January to now. It'll be on the web on September 17th, which is time to coincide with the WSU 125th anniversary celebrations here, actually. So the report will be on the web then. There's more extensive write-ups on each of these challenge problems in that report, as well as all the recommendations I talked about earlier. In addition, at that point, my colleague Ann Gossier has been, our communications effort has been doing a lot of work and a great job to rebuild all the Office of Research websites to communicate information on these challenges. Okay, so the websites will reflect that also in mid-September. And so around the September 17th, 18th, there'll be a whole bunch of information publicly released. In the meantime, obviously, you can get information from us or the faculty members up there, and the list of the folks here at the center of the room. So there's plenty of information available, if you'd like to have it. So with that, I think I've provided an introduction. The report is going to be public. We're going to be sort of rolling these out publicly as part of the 125th in a few weeks. And then after that, we're just going to continue to work with the faculty to refine these things and get specific research areas we're going to focus on, and work on getting responding to solicitations and getting an integrated multidisciplinary research program in these areas that you're about. So with that, why don't we move on and hear from our presenters? I think I'd like to do the questions. This is sort of a broad group at the end. So let me just close by thank you again for attending. It's really great to see you all here. I'm very excited about the research opportunities here, as are my colleagues up front and elsewhere involved in this effort. And again, thank you for attending, and thanks to all who participated in the 120-day study and getting us to this point. Couldn't do it without you. Okay? So, we'll do these plugs. So I'd just like to go down that list right there in front of us, as you can see. So colleagues up front, as we've talked about, sort of 7 minutes each or so on each one, very brief overview. And then, again, we'll take the questions at the end. So let's let each of our colleagues talk. So Tony will talk, John will talk, and then we'll have a Q&A. Okay, so first off, I'll do this to my first colleague, Paul Whitney.
Thank you, Chris. I have a very simple message. I may not even take 7 minutes just to keep us on track. And I'll prepare you now for the true-false quiz at the end. So you'll get one question from my section, and the question will be, the Sustaining Health Initiative is just about Spokane and the medical school, and the answer is false. Okay, everybody got it? So the real overarching message here is this is a broad, multidisciplinary initiative. And there's really two goals. One is to make our constituents and each other more aware of all the great stuff that's already going on broadly related to health at WSU. We have cutting-edge research from basic biomedical work on cancer that you already find at a medical school, mature medical school. We have health economics, we have health policy, we have social and behavioral sciences related to the health and well-being of families. There's a whole array of material of great investigators already engaging in health-related research, but our external constituents aren't necessarily aware of that or know that even at Extension there are people involved in human health. So part of this is a way of galvanizing a message to let our constituents statewide, people in Washington know, the other Washington know, that we already do a lot of health-related research across the system and not just in Spokane. Now, as this develops, we also have a second purpose, obviously, which is to galvanize new efforts, new multidisciplinary teams broadly related to sustaining health. And that will take new investments, new ideas, and part of this is to roll out some initial ideas that can encourage and help other people think about where we might go with this so that you can engage and you can help shape this initiative. So even from the current Grand Challenge leadership team, this is already cutting somewhat cross-cutting, and we certainly intend to make it more so. So currently on the team are John Roll and Phil Lazarus, and Wei Hang Chai from Spokane, and Guy Palmer and myself from Pullman. And we're in the process now of expanding those conversations out to include others across basic biomedical research, social sciences, health promotion, prevention science, and other relevant areas that would be interested. The Grand Challenge leadership team, as we've begun our discussions about how to help this get more momentum at WSU, has really centered on identifying areas of opportunity that build on some existing strengths, but also lead us towards what would we need to add in strength to really make rapid progress and have WSU be a center of excellence for sustaining health. And broadly speaking, we're looking at three areas that we have a special contribution to make as a university system-wide in social and behavioral determinants of health, in environmental and occupational health, and in health promotion and disease prevention. So this is a very complementary effort to the establishment of the medical school and what's going on and what will be built in Spokane, but complementary, not the same as or not just about Spokane. So as we thought about what initial goals and strategies we would have to make impact in those broad areas, what we've been talking about very recently, just to let you know, are three things. We believe it's crucial early on to establish a multidisciplinary community health initiative and infrastructure. We need to develop a network for translational health innovation. That will involve not only internal partnering, but external partnering will be key to translational health innovation. And finally,
we lost our screen in Vancouver. We lost our screen in Vancouver. We're told to just tell you that.
okay.
We don't see the PowerPoints.
We can hear you, Paul. That's okay.
Yeah.
Keep talking. Sorry.
Sorry.
Working on it right now. That's what they always say when the plane's delayed. And finally, the third one is to mount an integrated functional omics effort. And there's a lot of momentum already gathering around a nutrigenomics kind of smart food initiative that would cut across really just about all of the colleges at WSU could play a role in that. Okay, remember your true and false question answer. Thank you very much.
All right, so I'm actually going to get up to the podium. And I'm Stephanie Hampton. I'm the director of the Center for Environmental Research, Education, and Outreach. And you'll hear me call that CEREO if you're not familiar with it yet. And the challenge that I'm representing here is the Sustainable Resources Challenge, the Food, Energy, Water Nexus. And I actually do have some slides because at CEREO we've been partnering with some of the other centers and a number of other folks to do some activities in food, energy, water. Because we see that funders and policy setting organizations are increasingly interested not just in the scarcity of food, energy, and water, but the interdependencies among those resources. For example, National Science Foundation has announced their intention to invest $75 million in food, energy, water nexus issues in 2016. And as you read about this topic as it's evolved over several decades, I suppose, you see very clearly that this means many different things in many different systems. So from somebody thinking about, somebody might look at this slide and see food waste in a landfill, and others will look at this and also see all the energy wasted and all of the water that's been wasted in producing food that is then wasted. Certainly people have been thinking about the increasing scarcity of water for energy production, for cooling, and many other aspects of energy production. And I'm thinking at a very mechanistic level about increasing efficiencies within each aspect of the food, energy, water system. For example, increasing efficiency of production of food crops, potentially at molecular levels. And of course, in all of these food, energy, water nexus issues, there's a really significant component of ethics and social justice involved. So, for example, if a society puts in a dam to increase their energy security or their water security, that may radically decrease the food security for populations that are already powerless and compromised. And of course, in a general way, in all of these issues, it's not science or technology alone that is going to create the solutions. It really relies on people and their willingness and ability to actually implement new innovations, from people making decisions at an individual level to increasingly complex levels of governance. And as the conversation has evolved among the folks working on this challenge, we've really found it useful to focus on some of the opportunities that are represented within the Columbia River Basin that's such a strong influence in our region. As you all know, it spans borders, the Canadian-U.S. border, several state borders, and of course across many tribal lands. It is fueling the economy and supporting the natural environment across agricultural and urban landscapes. And of course, WSU has a pretty special opportunity to both understand some of the food, energy, water nexus issues and also help to implement solutions through its strong extension network, where we have an extension presence in all the counties of the state. It has a complex history of both the challenges and opportunities that are presented by putting in dams across the Columbia River and its tributaries, and a very rich history of communities expressing their connection to the river and its landscape through art and stories. And of course, we have a high reliance on renewable energy in Washington State already. And in many ways, it represents some of the challenges of the food, energy, water nexus very, very well. For example, thinking about the competing water uses of hydropower, agriculture, human consumption, and aquatic ecosystems. And as we expand this portfolio of renewable energy in Washington's energy, or the region's energy portfolio, we have new challenges to address. And some of them may involve using computers to balance the portfolio of energy use to increase its efficiency, and that involves the development of new algorithms and substantial investments in computing power. And it involves interdisciplinary teams thinking about the various trade-offs that are involved in using land, water, and energy for example, biofuels versus crop production. And of course, increasing efficiency in all the aspects of a food, energy, water system will be a major part of many of these solutions, while minimizing the environmental impacts. And environmental impacts we can think about not only in our regional way, what's going into my stream or my air, for example, but also the connections to the globe through production of greenhouse gases or other atmospheric deposition of pollutants, for example. Emphasizing again that all of these challenges, even though they feel very local and regional to us, are actually set in this global context of environment and economies as well. So we definitely invite your input into this challenge and look forward to collaborating with you on it. I think, a concrete suggestion, of course, to respond to anything that I've mentioned here today by email is perfectly welcome. And I think specifically, I know a number of you are probably already invited to some of the food, energy, water nexus workshops that NSF is sponsoring this fall. And so for you in particular, please contact us, or one of us at least, after you've come back from that workshop and give us some sense for how the discussion is framed. We know of several already, and we're really excited to see this conversation taking shape at the national level. That's all I've got here.
Thank you. I'm Amy Roth McDuffie, and I'm the Associate Dean for Research for the College of Education and serving on the Advancing Opportunity and Equity Grand Challenge Leadership Team. The other members of the team for Advancing Opportunity and Equity are Todd Butler from the English Department in the College of Arts and Sciences, Monica Johnson from the Department of Sociology, College of Arts and Sciences, Bruce Pinkleton from the Murrow College of Communication, and David Spropp from the Carson College of Business. And one of the things as we've begun our work earlier this summer that we realized early is that our challenge in particular was really bigger than any one college or program. And it probably will resonate most immediately with faculty in the social sciences and humanities, but we see connections really across the university. And so we invite faculty to think broadly as to the ways they might connect to opportunity and equity. Indeed, the white papers will be coming out in the next few weeks, as Chris mentioned earlier. And in the 6 pages that we're working with, we're quite sure that we're not going to be able to represent all of the ways, all of the research paradigms, all of the different topics that people take on. And so we encourage you to review, to provide feedback, and give us more input on how we can really represent and identify all of the areas included in this Grand Challenge. Our Grand Challenge really recognizes that knowledge is the cornerstone of our society. The vitality of our society truly depends on an informed populace, yet systemic disparities in opportunity, education, health, and employment continue to limit both individuals and entire communities in achieving their potential. The news of this summer has brought into sharp focus societal and community-based disparities, misunderstandings, bias, and prejudice, and these things create division and conflict. Some of these issues are stark, leading to protests and riots, and others can be less apparent or even hidden from view. For example, in my field in education, current practices of widespread educational testing serve to disadvantage and disenfranchise some groups that don't necessarily have a voice to speak for themselves. And this kind of practice has both immediate and long-term consequences for educational and economic opportunity. The themes for this Grand Challenge, are not just limited to aspirational goals. We see them as addressing issues that are truly the obligation of a modern land-grant university. Land-grant universities indeed were developed to ensure that the widest possible number of our nation's citizens have full access to the knowledge and education once available to only a few. The Grand Challenge represents the very core of WSU as an educational institution. In our work, we found that WSU has significant research capacity to investigate these issues. For example, faculty members in the humanities and arts investigate past and present dimensions of our society to help us to better understand both our common humanity and the origins and continuing effects of inequality. Faculty in social science, statistics, and education conduct important research in exploring, evaluating, and modeling economic, educational, and other outcomes. And researchers throughout the university and multiple colleges study the digital divide, media and politics, and the role of information access in ameliorating health disparities. These are just a window into the possibilities of the ways that faculty at WSU might connect to this Grand Challenge. And as we have talked with faculty and continue to talk to faculty, we're identifying more connections all of the time. We see this challenge as crossing traditional boundaries at the university to break down barriers and bring about new understandings, to develop new programs and initiatives, and help generate knowledge that will inform strategies to address the challenges. For example, this challenge provides an opportunity to bring together work from existing WSU centers, such as CIRIO, CISER, the Learning and Performance Research Center, and the newly formed Health Sciences STEM Ed Research Center. It also brings together faculty studying different problems relating to a common theme. For example, there are over 100 WSU researchers that are studying problems related to STEM education from early grades all the way through graduate school. And this can be a vital aspect of social education and economic opportunity. We see WSU as having the expertise to take on this grand challenge, and likewise the grand challenge provides an opportunity to coalesce and create new synergies for scholarship. By addressing the themes of the Advancing Opportunity and Equity Grand Challenge, we will emphasize research that helps us understand and move toward a more equitable and just society. It's been an important process as we've investigated the strengths and the potential here at WSU. And we found that the Grand Challenge also aligns with goals and solicitations from federal agencies such as NSF, NIH, NEH, the U.S. Department of Education, and its research arm in the Institute of Educational Sciences, as well as a range of private, corporate, and individual funding partners. So we encourage faculty, staff, and students with expertise and interest to continue to look at the documents as they're available and provide us input as to ways that we can really represent all that's going on here at WSU. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dave Field. I'm the Associate Dean for Engineering, or for Research in the Moylan College of Engineering. Actually, maybe I'll stand up too, because I miss half of the room over there. We are here to talk about the challenge called Improving Quality of Life Through Smart Systems. The leadership team for this, myself, Maureen Schmitter-Edgecombe from Psychology, Diane Cook in Computer Science, and Chen-Ching Liu from Electrical Engineering. When you think of smart systems, I've had a number of people tell me, well, that sounds like an engineering challenge. So hopefully there are components of engineering in all of the challenges, of course, coming from someone like me. But hopefully after I talk and after you read the white paper and see where we're headed, that you will recognize that it's obviously a multidisciplinary challenge as well. So the way we live, work, and play has been changing rapidly and continues to change rapidly. Part of that is through the development of these smart systems, smart environments, smart tools, smart goods that will autonomously make decisions. So when I define a smart system, it is a system that will sense the environment and alter itself without any human intervention based on what it senses in the environment. You walk into a room and the lights turn on. Right? That's a very simple example of a smart system. They go all the way up through systems that are used in manufacturing environments, the Google car, for example, that can drive through the streets safely, hopefully, and a number of other types of transportation systems. When we think of smart systems here at WSU, we have the smart grid, smart power grid. We have the Energy Systems Innovation Center that is headed up by Chen-Ching. We have the Smart Environments Research Center, where Maureen and Diane are members of that center. There's a number of people working in the areas of precision agriculture or smart farms. And all of these are types of environments that could be included in this discussion. Also inherent to the problems in this are the basic building blocks to develop the systems. So problems of infrastructure, what materials, what designs, what type of systems are most economical, most suitable to specific conditions. So materials are a strong component, as well as manufacturing, which we can also include smart manufacturing in my previous list. We have also computational and data sciences, which are important because the data have to be analyzed to determine what is apparent or what is going on in the environment or in the system, and be able to respond to that based on computations of what's noticed. Finally, economic, social, and policy dimensions of technology. You know, Amy mentioned the digital divide, which is something that's very real and very important. And these smart systems that are becoming more and more ubiquitous in our lives, are these going to perpetuate that divide? Are they going to alleviate the divide or exacerbate the divide? You know, so there's a lot of issues with smart systems where we need input and help from people working in those areas. Issues of privacy, issues of environmental concerns, sustainability, all of these are concerns that need to be addressed for this challenge.
Good afternoon. My name is Yogi Gupta. I'm a professor of physics at the College of Arts and Sciences. So, I don't know what a grand challenge is, to be quite honest. That word is used all the time. I do know what an enduring challenge is. And national security is an enduring challenge. When you think about it, the single most important function of the federal government is the security and protection of its citizens and the infrastructure that governs our lives. That is the single most important thing the federal government should be doing. And as the world has changed geopolitically, through globalization, transport of people and goods, national security has become a much bigger problem than simply 9/11. There are many components to it. And the team we have, my colleagues and I'll talk about those in a minute. One of the most difficult things about national security is it evolves in an unpredictable fashion. Very often, you're protecting from the last threat. That doesn't work. This is where I think the creativity, the intellectual curiosity for university comes in. The smartest people are not the faculty, it's the young students. And certainly not the administrators. It's the young people, young students who bring a certain vitality. And they're the ones who figure out. They're the ones who figure out how to make the next Google car safe. So I just want to make those comments. I have 4 colleagues, 4 of us. My own expertise in the area of matter at extreme conditions, which involves things happening very fast, lots of booms and so on. The second is Sue Clark, and she's heading nuclear non-proliferation. Very, very important thing for national security in this country. The third is Ambassador, whose concern is infectious diseases. Again, very important issue. And the fourth is colleague Chris Pankuk, who's focusing on global food security. So there are 4 of us, quite a diverse group. But there is a common theme, and the common theme is physical security, health security, and food security. And that's the job of the federal government, or as a society we have to do that. So what I thought I would do is, and let me make one other comment because I'm going to turn this over to Chris in a minute. So I've been at the university a very long time, and the common phrase is, let's build on our strengths. That's the wrong approach. We could be making the best buggy whips. Does anybody even know what a buggy whip is? The key is, we have to combine our strengths with the future needs. That's the hard part. I really believe that universities need to think more about the future than they have. And that's not easy to do. And that means taking risks. So I just want us to emphasize that we as a community of the academic community and our young people have to be thinking about the future. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Chris, who's going to talk about his specialty.
And, excuse me, Chris Pancook. I'm with Connors, the College of Agriculture and Natural Resource Sciences, and I direct international research and agricultural development programs for the last 10 years through the university. I was asked to help out with the 120-day program from Don Bender and Tom Spence back in the fall, and agreed to help out in ways that I could. Came up with a couple of grand challenge ideas in water, as well as in food security, and later, just recently, was asked to be on the national security team. When I first went to the national security team meeting for the first time, I had to take a quote from somebody. Tom Bender said to me once, he said, "I feel like a blueberry in a glass of milk." And national security, Chris Pancook, international development, didn't quite. Well, I went back and I actually read the U.S. National Security Strategy, and yes, indeed, there are a few things there about security issues as well as climate change that really kind of piqued my interest in what we are already doing and that we can continue to do in a bigger way overseas. Food security linked to national security system. Where is that? That's through all food crises that we have overseas, as well as here. There's a lot of anticipated problems that we have as the United States has to react to, and we can help out with that through our many colleges and faculty, students that can work on a few of the sub-themes that we've come up with. So let me just read you a couple that are right on our web pages, actually, in terms of increasing quality of life in underdeveloped countries through research and development. What we do on these very integrated programs is we provide access to clean water, healthy foods, with an emphasis in hygiene. So right there you've got an awful lot from across the university that can help. Diversification of food crops with low input sustainable systems, developing enterprises through value-added processing, marketing, managing natural resources through sustainable supplies, and increasing the capacity both of local, private, and public organizations to deliver extension and conduct research in those areas. So that's the challenge that we've been faced with as a university to deliver programs overseas. Why WSU? Why land-grant universities? Well, WSU has an incredible history. If you don't know about this, you could look this up. In 1954, we were working in Pakistan. We continued working in the Sudan. We've worked in the hard-to-get-to places. We're currently in Tanzania, Afghanistan, with the School of Local Animal Health, as well as Connors in Tanzania, Kenya. We have feet on the ground in Malawi, Afghanistan, Tanzania. These are platforms for students, faculty to utilize and for us to use as a grand challenge to promote this. We also have a lot of local programs. I can't name them all, but there's climate-friendly farming, which talks a bit more about the climate change and how farmers react to that. There's the REACH program, which is across the region, and of course the animal health programs that are through here as well. So there's a lot of already existing technical expertise here to deliver an awful lot of development programs overseas. How do we engage WSU faculty students to work overseas? That's my problem. It's been my problem for 10 years here, and I think we're fairly successful in it, not only in the College of Agriculture, but engineering, education, science, and such. I want to say a couple things at the end here. I know I'm out of time, but we do have WSU administrative support for this. We don't have money maybe for it, but we have all the support background for doing these. How do I have 4 houses that I'm working within Afghanistan and renting in Afghanistan and developing programs there. It's because I have administrative support, because we do have this capability to work overseas and develop in developing countries. I want to leave you with one quote. I was going to say maybe I should offer $1 to anybody that can answer who made this quote and when. But I'm not going to do that. Looking at everybody here, I bet that half of you know I'm going to be out of money in a little bit. Understanding that we must continue to make the benefit of our scientific advances available for the improvement of underdeveloped nations. Their poverty is a handicap and a threat both to them and to us. Now more than ever, we possess the knowledge and skill to relieve the suffering of people in developing countries. So that's the grand challenge that was. Okay, good. No, I'm not. First person can answer with that. And to do that after questions.
Well, I don't get $1, but hello everybody. My name is Antonio Martinez Latenci. I go by Tony because that's a mouthful. So I'm currently a senior in the Department of Psychology. A little background about myself. I am a first-generation Mexican American. My family came over to the United States back in 1980. I grew up in a small agricultural town about 2 hours away from here called Mattawa. Like a small agricultural town, as well as compounded by the fact that my family, my parents, only had about the equivalent of a second-grade education. Education wasn't necessarily seen as a big milestone, I guess you could say. It wasn't necessarily emphasized. And it was really unfortunate for other students who didn't have certain resources like I did. I had 2 brothers who were able to go to college. My 2 brothers, every time they came back after a semester to visit, they'd leave their textbooks with me. They'd tell me, read a little bit about this section, read a little bit about that, and we'll talk about it next time I come back. That sparked interest in research for me. My brother was a graduate student here as well, back when I was in high school, and that was the first time I got introduced to research. I found it fascinating, the fact that he had a question in his head, and he wanted to solve or find the answers to it. And there was a method to do that. When we started collecting data for his research project, and I saw how numbers told a story, that just captivated me. And I was hooked. I eventually was able to make it to Washington State University. And my first idea was, how do I get into graduate school? This is good, undergraduate and everything, but how do I get from here to there? Fortunately, there was an event called Conexión where I learned about the McNair program. I saw someone from my hometown who was also a McNair scholar at that time, and I just kind of wanted to say hi. But that was when I first found out about this program. He gave me the pamphlet and told me about the mission about getting underrepresented students into PhD programs and succeed. Again, I was hooked. I grabbed that pamphlet, I put it on my fridge, and I applied that January. I was accepted as a sophomore, and so I had 3 years. This is currently my 3rd year in this program. And I thought, how can I use these 3 years to the best of my abilities? My first project, I was fortunate enough to get partnered up with Dr. Niels Nielsen, a psychiatrist in the Department of Health and Wellness, as my mentor. My first project looked into willingness to seek professional mental health services. And that was a project that really resonated with me because before going to college, my idea was going into the military straight out of high school. Certain circumstances changed in my life, and that's why I'm here now, but I still wanted to figure out a way to give back to that community. I figured out what better way than to go into mental health issues and figure out how can we give them the services that they need. What are the barriers that impede them from getting these services? I also was a volunteer firefighter after my freshman year of college when I went back to my hometown. And it was at that time that I also realized how in desperate need first responders are of these mental health services as well. And so it's through those experiences that I realized that what I'm doing is exactly what I want to be doing. I want to be able to help these communities by answering these difficult questions with difficult processes. Along my journey through higher education, I was also able to go to the University of Notre Dame just this last summer and work in the Sleep, Stress, and Memory Lab under the guidance of Dr. Jessica Payne. I was very interested in sleep and memory as well because of how it connects to post-traumatic stress disorder. I thought I knew a little bit about it, but as soon as I got there, I realized I knew nothing. The more that I learned, the more I realized about how little I actually knew. And what I'm trying to explain with all these experiences is what research means to me. And what I found through all these experiences was that what research means to me is looking at the world around you, understanding the issues that are going around, and wanting to find solutions to those issues. Research is a combination of creativity, ingenuity, and selflessness. So, I can't help but be so thankful for the program that I'm in right now, and for this university for being such advocate for that program and for higher education for underrepresented students in general. All these conferences that I've been able to go to, all these people that I've been able to meet, all these ideas that I've been able to share and receive have enriched my life to such a great extent. But yeah, I think that what we're doing here as a university is great. And I am honestly jealous of the students who are going to be coming in here in the next 4 years and all the resources that are going to be available to them. But I gotta go. So thank you for your time.
Okay, thanks, Tony. I'd like to thank all the speakers for those great introductions. So we have one actually speaker left on AMS. John, are you there?
Yes, I am, Chris.
Thank you. Go ahead. I think we can all hear you, so go ahead and take it away. Thank you.
Hey. For just a second here. Well, thanks for the invite and also for the session. I got to attend an earlier one, and I'll keep my comments brief, but they relate to the grand challenges and our research priorities as it particularly relates to private support for WSU. June 30th, we closed what was the second comprehensive campaign that WSU has ever had in 125 years, at about $1.065 billion. And that campaign, in a real sense, it was called the Big Idea Campaign, but it was about unleashing kind of dreams, potentials, aspirations of what this university could do, and have it underwritten by private support. And if we look back at what happened with that $1.065 billion, at least several things happened that were big ideas that we would have never planned or could have planned beforehand, which is exactly what should have happened. The Paul Allen School for Global Animal Health and $51 million of support from Bill Gates and Paul Allen was not planned, nor was that school planned, but it happened. It was a big idea. I think it's fair to say that the Voiland College and what Gene and Linda Voiland did with $17 million into the chemical engineering department there for that college was something that was not planned and has been transformational. What Scott and Linda Carson have done for the College of Business and the Carson College for the students there and the student experience was not planned, yet was a big idea. And perhaps the biggest idea that came during this campaign and at the very end of it, which none of us would have guessed, would have been that we would be starting a medical school, the second public medical school in this state. So essentially what happened when you unleash private support is that private support allows us to do at least three things that the public money can't do for us. Number one, it helps underwrite that risk. Again, the Paul Allen School would be a wonderful example. There would have been no state appropriation. There would have been no regular state money that would have started something like that out of our veterinary school. It was private support that underwrote that kind of risk to take that kind of a program on. Private support allows us to add a layer of quality that we probably, maybe we shouldn't expect from public money, but it adds us to add a layer of quality that with the private support on top of the public support allows this institution to be excellent. And I would suggest that's what happened at the Voiland College, and Gene and Linda's gift went to the chemical engineering department. Gene and Linda, who felt very close to that department, wanted to make a good department a great department. And they were willing to underwrite with private support just that to make that happen. The last thing that private support does, which I think we can all relate to, it allows us to target support. Target support where public money maybe can't go, maybe where public money shouldn't go, but it allows it to target private support for example, students that have maybe from a disadvantaged situation in some way, which would never attend college otherwise. You know, some 40% of the freshmen on the Pullman campus, for example, this fall, that are first-generation college students are a prime example, many of them on scholarship. So again, the private money allows targeting support where, you know, to a specific demographic, a specific degree, a specific kind of student, a specific kind of program that public money couldn't really do. So again, the private support, and as we mature as an institution around private support, and we have this experience under our belt from this campaign that we've just finished, we couldn't be more thrilled about the process that the Office of Research, that Chris has led, that our faculty have gone through, our faculty and staff have gone through in terms of looking for priorities amongst our research going forward. Because starting in October, we're starting the needs assessment for the third comprehensive campaign for WSU. And unlike the second one, the one of big ideas, we envision the third one having a frame. And that frame being our strategic plan that we have now, which is pretty robust and it's pretty flexible. We envision it having the frame of the research priorities that are spelled out in the grand challenges, for example. We expect the third campaign to be framed by the capital plan for future physical structures across WSU and across the state. So unlike the second campaign of big ideas and blue sky, the third one is a blue sky as well. But I would suggest it's framed in a way that is going to allow us to hopefully generate even more support than the second campaign did. And I know all of our volunteers and our donors want the same thing to happen. So again, we're thrilled that the grand challenges have happened. We're thrilled that the strategic plan has come to the way that it has. We're thrilled about the capital plan for this institution. We're thrilled about the statewide footprint that this institution has with our groundbreaking in Everett coming up here in a couple weeks. Those are all reasons to be quite enthusiastic about future private support for WSU growing to an even greater extent than it is now. And so know that I speak on behalf of, I think, all the development officers that work across this institution, and that we're watching the whole experience, the whole exercise of the grand challenges and what they finally come to be and what they mean to the faculty themselves in their own offices and their own labs. Because what we're going to do is try to fulfill the kind of needs, underwrite risk and add quality and target support where you're focusing your attention. And that's why we think the Grand Challenge exercise has been so valuable. So, Chris, that's the only thing I wanted to convey, and I'm happy to try to answer any questions related to private support. But it's important and it's critical that it aligns with and it leverages public support. That's when our institution can really accelerate, is when you have those two in synchrony. And that's, I think, what's happened to WSU, particularly in the last decade, which, you know, is, I think, going to help the institution in an even greater extent in the future.
Okay, John, thank you very much for that background. So let's see. We're going to turn to questions in a moment, but I just wanted to spend a few moments talking about sort of where we go from here, and then field questions. So you've heard the background on the various challenges. In terms of thinking about next steps and where we are right now, I'd like to draw an analogy. Many of you who are in the research world know that when a new research idea comes up, the question is how is it actually exploited? And typically, the way agencies or other things do this is there's a series of workshops which refine this idea down to more specifics. Then solicitations are put out, ideas come in, research happens. What we're doing with these problems is actually very analogous. Our leadership teams with input from you and others are refining these big picture ideas, which are obviously very broad. The more specific things we're going to focus on here, which are well suited to what we do well, and as Yogi very well points out, potential new areas. There are some new areas already come out of the faculty discussions, right? So that'll get more specificity. Then we'll work to put proposals together in those areas. Multidisciplinary, typically, that's what a lot of agencies want, and then and turn that in. So as part of that, one of the things that we have to do within the Office of Research in the college is improve our ability to put together these multidisciplinary proposals. And so we actually have a whole separate effort in my office to staff that area up and support the faculty in doing this. Edith Dutta, many of you know, is working on that very actively. So we're moving into the implementation phase right now. That'll be a major theme for the next year. And I'd be glad to talk more about that. I guess I should just add to that, in the year I've been here, talking to other VPRs and other institutions, I think, the biggest difference that I see here at WSU between other VPR offices, basically other institutions that are successful in drawing in significant support for multidisciplinary activities have units that are focused on working on these big cross-college or cross-unit proposals. And we really don't have that here, and I'm building that right now. So anyway, I'll stop right there, and I think I'll turn it over to questions. But first, let me just thank again the speakers, including John, and I'd also like to thank Ann Gose and her team for assembling all this. So a quick hand for them. Now we'll turn it over to questions. So any questions of either me or the speakers or John? Oh, I'm sorry. Did I see someone here?
Well, no, but I have a question.
Yeah.
Can you say more about the team or the infrastructure you're building to facilitate interdisciplinary proposals?
Yeah, right. So sure. I think...
Can you repeat the question, Chris, please?
Yeah, please. The question was, can you say more about the teams to support interdisciplinary large proposals? Yeah, so let me just say, I think if you look at sort of how successful places do this, and I'll call big proposals, say over $1 million a year, roughly. Typically, those that succeed start in these 2 years ahead, quite often, right? And they start by actually thinking about what are the emerging areas we really need to be at. What are the most exciting opportunities to find those? Actually, go off and advocate that to sponsors, right? So the sponsors sort of are included with these emerging ideas. Then when the solicitation eventually comes out, universities that have done that, both the solicitation looks a lot like the idea they thought of because they briefed the sponsors on it, and B, they've already put a team together and ready to respond. You can't respond effectively to big calls for proposals in 60 days. You need to start way ahead of time. That's what successful universities do. We have to work that together with the colleges.
And will you also be helping with possibly training grant proposals, interdisciplinary training grants?
Yeah, Gita is my lead for this. Gita does. She has worked on some of those. We have worked on some of those already, but we just have to get some more folks working on this. If you look at universities that are successful at this, they typically have anywhere from 10 to 15 people that work on this sort of thing. We just have a little less than one handful. Okay. Other questions? Yeah, right there.
Hi, my name is Aziz Makhani. I'm from Small Business Development Center. Amy and John, you touched on commercial support. I'd like to know more about how commercial partners would participate and engage in each of the research programs. If you would be more aggressive than you did before, or what the mechanism would be, so that you could shorten the research to commercialization.
Yeah, actually, that's a great question, and I think it'll be aided by, we recently just have reorganized here in the university, and Anson Fatlin and Steve Packer do commercialization are now joined with us. We actually had a meeting, a little retreat offsite about how to affect that merger last week. So I can't give you a super crisp answer other than we're looking right now how to more effectively integrate, the research enterprise with commercialization and speed that idea to commercialization impact. I don't know if Anson is available on the team, or maybe John, you wanted to comment on that a little bit further.
I'm happy to make a brief comment, and that being that one of the things that we'd like to do by virtue of the Grand Challenge is even step up the whole notion of blending our research and the economic development, the outcomes of the research into the economy of the state and the nation and the world. To do that, and it's our job to keep relationships with businesses. It's economic development's job to keep relationships with businesses. And so what we hope is that we come out in the new campaign, in the needs assessment of the new campaign, as partners from the beginning. In other words, that we do more co-creation around solving these problems rather than us going out as fundraisers having a solution and looking for a problem. That's what I particularly like about the Grand Challenge is that the problems are articulated that real people have, real businesses have. The one thing that I think is going to be really different and what we're really going to attempt to do, and we're going to need everybody's help to do, is that problems are team sports. And oftentimes fundraising or businesses think in terms of it being a team sport, but we're not particularly organized that way. And that's one of the things that I know that we're going to try to use as a benefit of the reorganization of research and economic development together, and count on the development folks in all the colleges and campuses doing the same. In other words, we're trying to figure out how to incentivize and work together and co-create and discover and do our needs assessment that's going to start in October and go through this academic year as a team sport as well as an individual sport. And that's going to take some new ways of doing things. But we think it's the only way that we would turn our next campaign. We can do better than $1 billion, and we can look at $2 billion or whatever the next goal is by virtue of that collaborative kind of approach. Because that's the way the world works, and that's the way most businesses work as well. Now, from a startup perspective, and if the question specifically related to startups, there's lots of things that are happening in the Office of Commercialization around, finding investor support. And actually, we're looking at, as fundraisers, we're looking to try to help and boost the access to capital for startups as well. But I was speaking mainly prior to mid-sized and large businesses. I hope that addresses some of your question.
You did, John.
Yeah, thanks, John. Let me just add one other comment. Something that Anson Fatlin, the Associate VP for Economic Development at my office, were working on before we merged, and we're still working on, is looking at developing things like faculty entrepreneurship programs. And so we haven't gotten that quite sorted out yet. We hope to roll something out on that soon on that. We're working on that. Yeah.
I have a general comment and also a request.
Sure.
My name is Joe Povaya. I'm a Regents professor, chair of Department of Horticulture at College of Ag. I've been here 40 years. So the reason, what I've seen here, the comments, these are all very exciting. I'm kind of very excited about it. But looking back over history, I noticed that about 30 years, first 30 years I've been here, things were very slow. But I've seen last 5 to 10 years, things are picking up. So I'm kind of excited about that. My fear is, if you use these 5 areas to make an allocation of new money and try to set priorities, that's where I see this crying baby syndrome coming in. And how are you going to protect that?
That's always the question, right, or important one. So I think what we're going to do on that is basically, we are looking at, first we have to define these as the teams are, in more specificity. Okay, and you heard some of that today, but it'll be more in the white papers and the future revision of that. Then we have to look at what's required to advance those things. Then we have to look at them and prioritize them, right? And so that's the leadership's job, right? So we will take those things and we'll prioritize them. But I think it's important to remember, from my perspective, the heart of the university is faculty who are experts in what they do. These things are another opportunity, a multidisciplinary opportunity for our faculty that are highly skilled in their areas of expertise. We're not going to replace individual excellence with these, right? These are another outlet that sponsors happen to like for that excellence. So this is about getting people with excellence to work together, not about replacing individuals of excellence. It's another opportunity. It's not the different.
Chris, could I add just one comment to that too? The other thing, and those who've been in fundraising at WSU know this, but WSU has a core principle of private support, and that is that we listen to the donor, whoever that donor is. And what we try to find is where the institution's dreams match up with the donor's dreams. We don't try to get the donor to donate to anything. What we like about the grand challenges and demonstrating talent we have in faculty and so forth is to give them an array of the talent and opportunities to support things at WSU. But don't misunderstand that we go into a donor and say, we want you to donate in one of these 5 areas. What we do is listen to the donor, and we have a core principle of being donor-centric, meaning that they will donate where they want to donate and where it aligns with their dreams. And that means, in many cases, as you know, sponsoring individual faculty for endowed chairs, sponsoring individual labs, sponsoring individual kind of postdocs and graduate fellowships and undergraduate fellowship, scholarships around things that match their interests. And so that's not going to stop, nor is our donor centricity, our donor-centric view of how we handle our donors going to change, because that's what curries close relationships. So I just wanted to add that too. It's not like we're going to go out with this is a template and try to match it or oppose it, press it on every donor. It's actually quite the opposite.
Great. Okay, thanks, Joe. Other questions? Yeah.
Hi, I was just Brendan Walker in the psychology department. I just wanted to say, thanks for all the work that's gone into this, and these look like some really grand challenges, and there's a lot of very interesting stuff. I was just going to mention one thing about, related to a comment earlier, and it's, there's this appearance of aggressively going after these new opportunities to kind of facilitate these grand challenges. And so I'm in pharmacotherapy development, and I just wanted to urge a word of caution on being too aggressive, right? So over the last couple of decades, universities have caught on that we could be making a lot of money off of the stuff that's going on in our universities that we've been missing out on, right? And so now it seems to me like there's a lot of pretty aggressive policies, and one of those that consistently impacts my research is this, I could collaborate with pharmaceutical companies that have novel compounds that have not been published on yet. But there's an IP issue, right? And so, and these companies who have spent $1 billion on this compound are not going to give up their IP to WSU for me to be able to do a study. But the thing is, so I've actually had some situations where talks broke down in between the company and our, on the legal side. But it's like, by being that aggressive initially, then like that study that I would have done with that tool compound, as we would call them, would have shown something very critical that I needed to put in my next grant that would have enhanced the probability that it got funded, right? So I just want to urge this word of caution in terms of trying to go after the goal too kind of aggressively, just in general, and make sure that you are really getting, I know a lot of people have contributed, but make sure that that you're getting all the kind of different sides of the story and trying to just accommodate the needs of everyone. I probably would have tried to have gotten involved a little bit earlier. I was on sabbatical last year, so I wasn't able to do it. But I just wanted to make that comment and say thanks to everyone for being involved.
Yeah, thanks for that. I mean, I think certainly it's a good general point, which is why I think we need to get as specific as, we're not going to address every aspect of all of these challenges here at WSU. We have to be very specific in what we focus on. I think the other point you made about IP, is a great one. I mean, we have not changed any of our IP policies as a result of this. And I think we would, that's an area you point out for every individual case has to be treated with great care, right? I mean, you really got to be careful about that. I think we handle it on a case by case. Okay, other questions? Yeah.
Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Greg Antoninski. I'm director of the School of Music, and what I can say is I think these grand challenges are great. They're very interesting. I've been thinking hard about them, and I have. It's kind of difficult for me to see how the arts fit into this in any way. I mean, there are certain ways that I can see sustaining health. Health is beyond physical health. There's also cultural health and mental health and all the rest of that. Music has a very important role to play in that. But, I mean, those are sort of abstract arguments, and it's difficult when we talk about workshops that are coming up where we're going to talk about how to address these and how we can cooperate with other units and all that. Music would love to be part of this. We think it's a fantastic initiative. We just hope that we don't get left out somehow. I need to qualify this by saying that I feel that the administration here is very supportive of the arts in general and supportive of music in particular. So I'm not complaining about that. But as the university goes forward, and it may be part of an initiative for more fundraising and all the rest of it, I guess we don't want to be standing on the sidelines watching what everybody else is doing. So we're hoping that this can be broad enough so that it would incorporate the kind of scholarship that those of us in the arts do. That's all. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thanks for that point. I mean, I think that was a really clear theme we heard throughout the study, and I think it's just something we have to keep in mind as we refine these. I also think it's something we need to keep in mind, or I need to keep in mind more broadly as I think about the overall environment for scholarship, innovation, and creativity here. So I look forward to discussing it with you. I'm not sure that, that this is actually enough, quote unquote, to deal with that, but I think we need to keep that in mind in the whole, as we think about the entire sphere of activities we do in research scholarship.
Hey, Chris, somebody's been waiting.
Oh, thank you, Yogi. Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jessica Arroyo. I'm a first-generation, third-year WSU student, undergrad student, and I also do research and at the plant pathology and my research is based in microsorganous ancestry. And I had a quick question. Well, actually, I want to say as well, being able to be part of research has impacted my life as an undergrad student, and I'm really grateful you guys have these great opportunities and the grand challenge that can also affect other students here at WSU. So my question is, how can I or other students can be involved in this great opportunity and this grand challenge?
Great question. I think hopefully we've given you some folks to get involved with here, but let me actually perhaps get some perspective from my colleagues on that. We've thought about it a bit.
It's a great question, and I bugged Chris about that from the early days of the 120-day study, because I think it's easy to forget that involvement in mentored faculty activity, and research is only one of those, but it's a very important one of those, research and scholarly and creative activity. And Greg, maybe this is one of the ways that we could think about fitting some of the arts in as well. Those sort of mentored activities aren't, right now one of my concerns is everybody thinks about, well, if I want to go to graduate school, if I want to go to med school, then I need to think about getting involved in research. If you talk to employers, then they're looking for many of the skills that our students build in research. And I think all of us, from the get-go, would think that this is also going to spill over into our ability to attract undergraduate and graduate students. You can work on cutting-edge research that solves problems from a disciplinary perspective and working as a member of a team, which graduate school and employers all care about. So this effort is going to spill into the life of the university as a whole. And I agree with Yogi. I don't say that all the time. I agree with Yogi that...
Can you take notes of that?
that it's often the innovative, novel ideas come from pushing the students. And I'll say one more thing. As you can tell, this is a little bit of a soapbox for me. I'll say one more thing about that. And your question, I think, should remind all of us of this. I have been involved in trying to help people form interdisciplinary teams for a long time. I'm a member of an interdisciplinary team myself, and it took about a half a dozen false starts before we had one that really clicked. And the glue that holds most teams together in the beginning that helps them get sustained are students. Students having to get through a requirement, students getting the faculty together long enough to understand each other's argot. And that's, I was talking to Dave Field before this meeting. It's really easy to get an interdisciplinary potential team together and have 2 enthusiastic meetings. It's about 1 out of 20 that has a 3rd enthusiastic meeting that makes progress. And it's that understanding each other long enough to speak a common vocabulary. Students are key to that. So my long answer is, shortened now, students are the key to really making this whole thing work.
Yeah, of course. So I want to address from a faculty point of view. That was an administrative point of view. The best thing about WSU is that faculty are approachable. Don't ever forget that. The faculty love students who walk. If you knock on my door, I wish you were studying physics. Okay? If you knock on my door and say, tell me what I can do for fun, research. That's the best thing I can hear. So the most important thing is go talk to the faculty. They care. This is unique about this institution. If you are in some big city in Chicago or LA, that may not be the case. Go talk to the faculty members. They would love to talk to young students.
Well said, Yogi. Thank you. Other questions? That was a great one. They all did.
Cool.
Yeah.
Hi, I didn't have a question. I just wanted to respond to my colleague from music. I just wanted to say to someone who's on one of these teams that the task or the goal is to do specific research projects that are to be formally collaborative on these areas. The vision is to ask questions about what it means to live in the human condition in our world, what it means to have a relationship to a natural environment and to the human and non-human others that we meet in our everyday lives. Where else can we ask that, if not in the arts? Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow the same thing I was going to follow up on.
Yeah, take it, Mike. Thanks.
Thanks. I just wanted to also mention, Greg, there are programs like this that exist. And for example, another land-grant university, Utah State University, has a thing called the Crossroads Project. The Crossroads Project addresses sustainable resources, food and water issues in the world and how we respond to it. It's composed music played by a string quartet with live videos, with sculpture, with art, and with acting, talking about how we respond as humans, the human condition, to global change. Receding tide, rising tides was one. This next one is emergence of our emotional responses to the changing environment. So there is no better way to communicate science to the public at large other than through, I don't want to call it entertainment, but through a more visceral response, through entertainment, through music, through art, through sculpture, through entertainment. I think that's what we can do at WSU better than just about any other school can do, because we have an integrated College of Arts and Sciences, whereas many do not. We have the opportunity of having everybody on the campus work together and looking at these grand challenges and creating composed, sponsored works around multidisciplinary composed works around these grand challenges as a communication tool.
Great answer, Glenn. Could you introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Glenn Prestwich. I'm actually a faculty member down at University of Utah, and I run an entrepreneurial faculty scholar program, which I created about 8 years ago. And I'm working with the WSU system to help create an entrepreneurial faculty scholar program here, which also recognizes that entrepreneurship is not unique to sciences and medicine and engineering. We have entrepreneurs in the creative arts very strongly in music and dance and social and behavioral sciences. There are entrepreneurs everywhere, and that's the goal, is to look at entrepreneurial activities campus-wide, not just in making money, but having impact.
Okay, thanks, Glenn. Another question or other questions? Oh, over there.
I'm Kulwinder Gill, Crop and Soil Science Department. First of all, I would like to thank you and the team for coming up with these grant challenges. Wonderful. What I like about these is these are broad enough to start with, and I think your message is very clear. The resources will not be spread evenly across. They will be focused on key priorities. That's just, I think, excellent way of doing it. My question is that the issues keep emerging and the new ideas and new changes and new priorities become available. Is there any mechanism built into these as we come up with the priorities in the future, that as the new issues come, that how will they be integrated into our grant challenges? And second, I like the fundamental research in the last one, but I think fundamental research, I hope it is going to be an integral part of all grant challenges.
Okay, so there's two. First, let me answer the easy one first. Fundamental research is certainly a part of all of them. It's just happened to be named that way. Let me make sure it's clear that that's just naming as there's no intention one is more applied than the other. I think the answer to your first question about how we prioritize over time to determine these things are fluid. We're going to come up with some focus areas over time, so they will sort of naturally evolve. The way where I come from in my career, in physical sciences, is the way you get thoughts on prioritizations. You have to go through peer review, right? So I expect over time to get some, peer review. I have a little group right now that's looking at the whole program, and over time I want to get some focused external input on these things. That'll help guide what we do technically, right? And I think it's very important to get that outside view. One of the things that we've started within the proposal development shop that I talked about, that Gita has put together, is serious external review of large proposals. We've now done that, and that's really helped. I hope we win some of our recent submissions, but I can tell you they're a lot better than they have been. Okay. Yeah.
I believe the grant challenges are amazing, but I would caution that we have to be mindful of the potential negative consequences as we move forward. And so you think about how noble it is to have sustainable resources and smart systems, but how do we think long term with a post-scarcity economy? How do we deal with workers? And inevitably, how do we deal with crimes? People who are insecure and stable. I should qualify that I am in the Department of Criminal Justice and Criminology, so I can qualify that. But I think that it's very easy to think about national security and what we need to do, what we need to move forward, but it's also to be mindful. We've done a lot of things in the name of national security.
Yeah, right.
And one of the things that in reading through what we're looking at, I noticed that there wasn't as much emphasis on cybersecurity, which I should also say is one of my areas, so I guess I'm biased in that regard as well. But looking at how food security and looking at nuclear non-proliferation, but also being mindful of cybersecurity and the growth of technology and how that brings other aspects of insecurity to it as well.
Chris,
Go ahead, Yogi, please.
So, I was asked not to show slides, so I didn't show a slide. But the one thing that was really missing to me in the fundamental research in terms of national security is cybersecurity. I personally believe in 50 years we won't have any physical wars. We will have cyber wars. It is the most asymmetric warfare you can think of. Some very smart kid sitting 10,000 miles away can bring the whole country to its knees. Look at WSU. Look what happened the last 2 months. Well, I haven't been able to send an email to anybody. So I'm agreeing with you that the thing I want to caution you is, do we have the ability to really pay big time in that arena? It's an arena that everybody's playing in. The Carnegie Mellon, the Stanford, the MITs. That means you better be ready to invest. So all I'm saying is, I completely agree with you. I think cybersecurity must be. But the challenge is, do we have the resources to compete effectively? And those are two very important words, compete effectively.
Yeah, great point. You heard Paul wasn't coming.
Yeah, let me just comment briefly on your first point that you made. The largest mental health system, if you want to call it that, in the United States is the prison system. That's a huge human equity and a huge health challenge. And the intersection between substance abuse, crime, prison system, and health is something at WSU that we're in a position to work together and actually make some headway on. So that is going to be part of, I think, at least two of the grand challenges here.
Yeah, let me add to that a couple of comments. It's a great question, cybersecurity. So 2 comments. First of all, we did think about this quite a bit in putting these together. And actually, Yogi's point is sort of the key one. The issue is just our ability to focus on it. What we decided to do now is there's certain areas where we do have strength in that. And so, in fact, in the Smart Systems Challenge, cybersecurity is a significant part of what the GRID group does. They actually have a number of funded some work in that area. And actually, our nuclear reactor group, within the last one, that Academic Sciences get been funded to do some cybersecurity studies in terms of actually attacks on reactor operating systems. So we have actually got a little bit of cybersecurity funding in the areas. But it's going to be, I think Yogi is saying, it's going to be in the areas where we can effectively compete right now, because we're not stable. But we can do work in areas like Paul mentioned and I just mentioned. Okay, other questions? Right, yeah, thank you.
I just have a very good question. I guess I'm very anxious to get involved and get this thing started. So the next step is white paper projects, or white papers, I mean. So, like, what after that? Like, what can we do? Like, as faculty, what can we do? How can we get involved?
Right. Yeah. Thank you. So let me say what I said a few minutes ago. So first of all, yes, the white papers that are being put together by the groups will have more focused areas that we're going to work in, so you can get involved in those or work on adjusting them as you see fit. So you can, we will then use that to try and drive more multidisciplinary proposals, things of that sort, and so that's another outlet. We'd like to get some C grants in here. This sort of stuff, right? I haven't quite got that locked down yet, but I'm working on it. And again, back to what I said earlier. Over time, the way these things normally evolve is, I expect there'll be some more focused workshops on some of these topics, and then you can come to those and turn in and submit your ideas. I mean, I think Stephanie mentioned earlier, thanks to some NSF funding that Stephanie successfully got, that she's going to be doing a food, energy, water workshop next month. And that's a place where you can go and put your ideas down and interact with the colleagues. So, workshops, proposals, working with the teams, that's the next step. And then the last piece is, we have to set up a management structure in order to manage these things. And, if you look at other places that do these big challenges like this, that's going to be institutes or things like that. We're evaluating that right now as part of the next step. I can't say a definitive plan, but we need to figure out a way to continually, status and track and manage these horizontal activities, I call them. Thank you. Yeah.
I just have one comment. I don't think I was just going to say that was one of the impressions that I kind of came away from the documents that are on the website, is that there was a definitive increase in administrative burden, and there was a projected increase in quality attraction faculty. Right? It's like some of the immediate events were let's hire more administrators. Yeah. And so, in the face of that was the impression. That was just the impression that I came away with. But in the face of, in the time of budgetary crisis, is that where the money needs to be committed? My question, is that I think we need to watch out.
Well, yeah. Look, I think. So let me just quote, Dan on this. I'll try and quote it, but I'll say my version of it. Dan wants to invest money in very serious universities. One of them is research, but he's very, we're all very focused on doing things where there'll be a return, right? And so, for example, we've asked the groups to look at areas of things that investment we need to advance these challenges. We're going to be very picky about that. Okay, we invest in. Within my area, I do think it's important that we don't have any group that supports development of these larger proposals. We typically get outmatched because we start 60 days before instead of 2 years before. And we just have to prove that. We're going to do that with the colleges. We're going to do it as efficiently as we can. Colleges like Connors have they already have a research infrastructure in place. We'll work with them. we'll try and build that jointly as a team in the most efficient way possible. The point of this is not to hire administrators, it's to help you, it's to help the faculty.
Yeah, and I'm not opposed to hiring more administrators at all whatsoever.
No.
I'm just saying that it seemed like from the document, the immediate tangibles were that there was going to need to be.
So which document?
Was the link? Yeah, the link to when I RSVP'd the document on the website.
Okay. So it might have been talking about Gita's group. I mean, that's the main area of focus, at least for me. I mean, working on folks to help develop and write and submit these big proposals. Yeah, thank you.
Don Gushoy from School of Westland Business Management, College of Business. I would like to thank everyone for their hard work on this project. I have one question. The goals, the grand challenges. How is the outcome going to be measured?
By outcomes in the specific research areas we focus on within each one. So if we focus on antimicrobial resistance or whatever else, we'll see how we do with it.
Can I?
I mean, yes, absolutely.
So your question is an excellent one. Your question is an excellent one. One thing the universities have a very hard time with is evaluating the return on their investment. And I'm not even a business guy, I'm a physics professor. And I think one has to be very careful. A return on investment in a university cannot be evaluated in 6 months, 8 months, or 5 years. Getting a young undergraduate student excited about research, how do you measure that in dollars and cents? You can't. So I believe we have 2 columnists at the helm in this university right now. And I'm very curious to see how they will evaluate these investments, the return on investments. And your question is a great one. And I've been struggling with this for decades, and I don't know the answer. Maybe Chris is really a smart guy, he'll figure it out. but one other comment, Chris, very quickly. My good friend Brendan said, I suggest you read the article. Every university, Brendan, is struggling with this issue of administrative cost. Read the Wall Street Journal of last week, Thursday, I think. The president of University of Colorado has a wonderful op-ed piece. Guess what is the fastest growing animal in America? University administrators. And I think it's really critical. And that's the challenge he has. And people like him and Dan Bernardo and the deans have is, don't starve the faculty. They are the ones who produce. But this is not a challenge for this university, but this is for everyone. And I think we have to work together. That's the key.
Yeah, we do. Let me just get one final answer to that question too. In the strategic plan, there's a whole bunch of metrics that Dan will use to measure across all those goals. And so research is funding. It's also prestigious prizes and awards and things like that. So there's actually these are great questions, but Dan just reminds me that we're actually out of time. So I will stay here to answer more questions. I really would like to do that, or I think my colleagues here will as well. So let me just close by thanking everyone for attending with us. Thank again our panelists. We look forward to really furthering the efforts to research and projects on the side of the
I received an email. I received an email from you guys about using. I'm the